Nearing the allotted span, I observed the riddle. The heart of mankind was made oblivious to the gates of the inner ocean. Credulous as I watch, this puppet show of shells and shadow and dance with a vicious smile. These veils of fried out neurons stage each day behind the perimeters. They're shrouded by rusted curtains you cannot see. The fragmented shards scrape the sound of the spindle, leaving consciousness enthralled to its contingency. Take back the 9, for the inner earth is a sacred chamber. The central sun within yourself. It was besought with the strength of wisdom, planetary spheres, and knowledge of the higher sciences of myths and truth. They burn through the synthetic fabrics of these rusted veils, breaking the seals of their set barriers. For we heal to bridge the abyss of shattered consciousness. And as we breathe into this bone, activate our blood, and spiral out to clear the minefield of the spelled, stifled air. It's through my inner knowing I set myself in flight with stars. For we hold the keys to the gates within us. The power has guided, set its will forth, and I choose to empower the determination within me. I've witnessed streams of fire and then water come forth my first eye. From within the vortex it has carved out its path. For both in presence or absence of myself, this is where I become neutral in reflection. We are not here to be set as rotting stone in the poisoned mortar stacked upon itself, pressed in by the wheel. Whereas I watch in action and feel into that place which is beyond the barrier. It is there you know all too well the darkness and the mystery of the void. All is laid open between your heart and the vortex through the gates, yet it is only there, held within the bridged core essence, that the lapis philosophorum exists. Know thyself. You will know the universe. Welcome back, everyone. This is Sethikus, Boza, blackearthproductions, Blue Flame, Healing Arts, and Occult Science. Here now for the long-awaited Labyrinth of the 9 Veilz presentation. First thing I want to say here that the purpose of this segment is going to be to assist the individual for more in consideration to healing, in context to how the manipulation of the third dimension is taking place and how all of it operates and through these veils as it truly stands. It is my wish and heart that everyone could know the difference with what is going to be presented. Alas, I'm only one person and will ask for your assistance to share this with others as things continue to progress. The work it takes and the passion required can only propel an individual to places where it happens either on its own accord, as the eternal spirit is working to integrate itself from the core of the individual, or this is willingly pursued in order to know the truth of not only how things operate in the objective reality field, but how your subjective reality has been affected by these things, as well to know the difference in context to awareness. And to that, and what we must be focused on in trajectory beyond all of these things. It is to say that awareness is not focus, but it must be spoken of in what has been revealed on certain levels to know the difference. And here it's another thing to experience in context to the knowing. First, I need to say that this is not going to be my opinion based upon certain concepts or speculations of what piercing the veil is or what the labyrinth actually entails as far as its construction. But there is more than one veil here in terms of how things have been affected in the reality field. This is going to be a rendition and reflection. It's not only what I personally experienced, but it's going to reveal a lot of the things that have been confirmed in terms of my personal study and also what other people have touched upon over the years. Yet most of what individuals assume is truth is really nothing more than part of the spinnerack that keeps you from the knowing beyond these things. The key here is always going to be to ground yourself despite anything that is going on otherwise. Mind you, we are here. And piercing the veils has nothing to do with any sort of spiritual escapism, more than it's to do with the integration and healing process we undergo in context to the alchemical rites of initiation. And see, I've mentioned these things before on the platform, but all of this is going to take it much deeper so that further understanding is known. First, I don't claim to, nor have I ever claimed truth as my own. But for those that are seeking it within themselves, understand the truth is seeking you as well, and is a part of what I'm here to do in sharing it with those that have the eye to see and the ear to hear. And though we are working to become the masters of ourselves in connection with the all, we are not the masters over it. And it's not of ourselves alone that we can come into any of this. The mechanics of the alchemical rites of initiation and the working of it will take you through the process of passing through the veils, which are to do with the gates within yourself. This presentation will further expose the manipulation that has happened against us, which in turn is going to reveal a lot of what is happening within the etheric body, which in turn is the makeup of the mental and emotional bodies. And though a gate and a path may be narrow beyond the concept of what narrow even is, we are actually all aware of these things on certain levels. If you can recall the conversations and the labyrinth we all seem to be waking up to, that we have been in, nothing can be conclusive without true self-actualization, which is the higher will force of the true intelligence ignited from a place of wisdom coming into the knowing of what proper knowledge brings to us. And instead of trying to figure it all out, getting up in your head about shit, you have to allow the answers to come. But you got to be aware of your bias, you got to be aware of your filters, you got to be aware of your triggers, and all of this other stuff in context to the overlay and distortions to which much of these things are being filtered through and not being seen for what they are from the core intelligence of what is there within us. And in having pierced the veils and reintegrated certain fractured soul code fragments of ourselves which hold us in connection to the higher force, this is the integration process. Yes, there are very real evil individuals and beings working within these veils, especially the first four of the lower astral gridworks in context, trying to keep us from moving beyond them. But if you come to know thyself and the nature of cosmic law and how things actually work, making your connection to the higher force, there is no thing that you cannot overcome knowing the difference. See, in truth, without also understanding the nature of the 396 in context to the fourth dimension and gematria, having at least known about or moved beyond things into the fourth veil in context of experience, I can assure you that humanity will never be free on the levels to the birthright. This is where it still stands right now in context to the collective. But fact is that we are at the gates of the fourth veil now. And these things must be known, otherwise the machine will continue to operate as it has. But to the passion of my heart, it will not allow me to be silent. And it is to know that the mathematics of the veils is a proven formula. And with it is proven both the existence of the Ouroboros, which is the 4D etheric formula lockdown equation via the 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, triangulated again by the 396, as I've mentioned so many times before. See, one thing I need to explain about this specific sigil that you see on the slide, and also what I've been presenting with various videos on the platform for a while now, is exposing what the fuck I'm talking about, on top of the fact that, again, the circle of the magician in connection to the higher force is right in the middle of all of it. Now, I'm using the hammer of Thunar with this as well in context to the spindle of the energy force. And again, when 0 and 9 are in alignment, that's when you transcend this shit. And the 9 different points of the anagram, which has been overshadowed by what the fuck I'm exposing here in this segment, is what it means to pull this shit back into alignment. So I don't want anybody out there to confuse any of the symbolism that I use on this channel in terms of malevolence. No, it's to let you know what the fuck is up. And as things progress with Black Earth Productions, of course, these things are going to change as well. But all of this is a trajectory, and it's taken a certain amount of time to get up to this point to be able to even do this presentation. So see it for what it is in context to what I am saying, not the other way around with your bias, your filters, or whatever the hell perceptions you assume when it comes to what I do, who I am, and what I stand for. See, what you got to understand, it circumvents and perpetuates the infinite formula within the cell structure of us as individuals with the 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, which is the formula for physical reality in correspondence with the 396 that perpetuates the lap down into a 2-strand DNA consciousness and is one of the major cause points for polarity. When in context to the birthright, we are meant to be on a 12 to 24 to 48 strand state of consciousness. And all of these operate in a different way in context to progression and expansion of awareness and integration. First here, though, it is the 9 of the 396 that is, again, the spindle of the energy force in both the etheric and physical dimensions. It is the regulator of the energy force of the universe in context to mathematics. And to its manipulation brings forth the illusion of duality and is the cause point, again, for things being polarized in the reality when the circle or the magician is taken out of the equation otherwise, or is used in a way that doesn't set forth connection to true intelligence and the higher force, your core essence, who you truly are, all of that, and is held or blocked in context to the manipulation within the numerology of all the fractal virus, false sacred geometry constructs, which are nothing to do with the underpinning geometry of the universe. And see, it's all the false sacred geometry that actually traps sound, consciousness, energy, frequency, and vibration within the triangulation instead of blowing it open in alignment. And this, of course, involves the numerical integers of 0 through 9, which in turn are the circle of the magician and the spindle of the energy force itself. You can take it to the staff, okay? The staff of fire. Now, to mathematically explain the formula of the 9, take a look at these 9 equations. 1 times 8 plus 1 equals 9. 12 times 8 plus 2 equals 98. 123 times 8 plus 3 equals 987. 1,234 times 8 plus 4 equals 9,876. 12,345 times 8 plus 5 equals 98,765. 123,456 times 8 plus 6 equals 978,654. 1,234,567 times 8 plus 7 equals 9,876,543. 12,345,678 times 8 plus 8 equals 98,765,432. And last year, 123,456,789 times 8 plus 9 equals 987,654,321. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And see, that's how the 9 works mathematically, which in turn takes the circle of the magician, 0, out of the equation when it comes to the Pythagorean theorem. Now, a short story I want to share here that was taken from the documentary Via Dangerous Knowledge. It speaks about a mathematician via Greor Cantor, who ended up going fucking mad and working to find the number of quote-unquote God here in context. He, though, was not a mystic or a magus or a sage, and is what was kept from him as well as others in context to what zero actually is, as he was not able to experience what he was seeking in context. He was coming from a place of left brain intellect instead of true intelligence, which pulls thought and emotion in alignment with that. And see, I don't use the word God myself here, as there are many gods and goddesses in context to the ancestors. But all of this is well for anyone else that seeks to move beyond the pi sequence loop of the 3.14, 159, 265, 3589, and see, it just keeps going for infinity on a fucking loop, okay? Here again, I'm going to share the clip which reveals, as far as I'm concerned, the mathematical secrets of the universe in context of what I'm getting at. I presented this before. You're going to want to pay attention again in light of everything I'm mentioning at the moment in this segment.
4 doubled is 8. 8 doubled is 16. Okay, but we're still at that 7 that we got there by halving 0.25. But this time we just go 1 plus 6 equals 7. 16 doubled is 32, the track of infinity. Okay, 32 doubled is 64. Oops, 64, which equals 10, which equals 1. And you're back to where you began. You've gone one complete cycle of infinity. Okay, that's why the I Ching is 64, not because 8 times 8 is 64, but because it's of infinity. The secret of this whole thing is the axis, the number 9. It's the most important part. Only number 9 lines up with where the 0 is, the whole, the vortex that must exist. Number 9 never changes. 9, 18, 27, 36, 45, 54, 63, 72, 81, 90, because multiples of 9, 9, 18, 27, 36, 45, always reduce back to 9. I'm just going to go to the 3, I'm going to go to the 6. Now David knows that I've been doing the binary code, but the binary code does not exist. It's a pretty big claim. The minimum amount of parts of anything is 3. Okay? The binary code is revealing, if you look at the symbol, it's all triangulated. So let's take the binary code, look at it as my discrete number pattern. Instead of going 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, I'll go 1, 2, 4, 8, but I'll make 16 a 7, I'll make 32 a 5, and I'm back to 64, which is times 1. I'm just going to look. We know when we have a circle that a 120 degree and a 240 degree is triangulated. So I'm not going to call this a 240 and 120 degree. I'm going to call it a 3 and a 6. It's the same thing, triangulation, and that's all I'm looking at to prove. So again, I'm looking at not the 120, but I'm going 1 plus 2 plus 0 equals 3, and I'm going 2 plus 4 plus 0 equals 6. I'm looking at the single digit and keeping it simple, and that is enough information for me to understand the geometry of it, the ratio and the proportion. And looking at the binary code, 1 and 2 is 3, 2 and 4 is 6, 4 and 8 is 12 is 3, 8 and 7 is 15 is 6, 7 and 5 is 12 is 3, 5 and 1 is 6. The binary code is warping around something invisible. There's an invisible spindle right here. And this has caused people so much trouble in mathematics. 3, 9, 6 are in a different dimension and move in a different way and have a whole different reality than the 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5. And you never get a 3, 9, 6 from the 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5. The binary code, the 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, is triangulated. 3 and 6 are a duality, but the 9, it's always there. It's the third part. And what this math does is too much to go into next, which is harmonic shears, the underpinning geometry of the universe. Understanding what we already have had and what we've already known, you could figure out every secret in the universe. Only number 9 lines up with where the 0 is, the whole, the vortex that must exist.
What we're looking at is to do with advanced vortex mathematics, which does not rest alone in full explanation of what that specific clip reveals, but it does reveal the structure of what all of this proves. Now, what is necessary to further know is that there is something else beyond it all.
and it cannot be put into words or a formula to be explained within the confines of the 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, or dissected or looked upon in a way where it's going to make sense to just the rational aspect of who we are. Yes, we need to be rational, we need to be reasonable, but what we are truly dealing with here, and what I'm getting at, is the power of the higher force, which is Creator Source. So in other terms to this, I've mentioned the Kundara, I've also mentioned the third energy, which exists from the breath point of the 15th dimension and is the divine essence and true sacred codex in formation of the original 12-strand DNA template. Of course, taking that back to the 3-core chakra system. And this is part of what I'm here to do in the position that I hold, to assist others in making their own connection to this, and must be known and made connection with before you can truly pierce the veils and navigate this shit fucking correctly. And I'm talking about connection to your core intelligence and the higher force. And see, this, as far as I'm concerned, is why there are so many issues and problems still when it comes to seeking knowledge or wanting to know about how things actually work. The way that you are perceiving it is coming from a place of bias, triggers, filters, and distortions. So it becomes difficult, becomes challenging. But to what I'm getting at here, in terms of making that connection to your core intelligence, to your core essence, this is where we need to be focused, and this is where we need to be coming from when it comes to anything that is being revealed in terms of awareness, let alone what we actually need to be focused on. Now I'm going to be moving into things in context to the first veil. There's an alleged 6 to 7 billion people on Earth right now. And unfortunately, most live without having contemplated anything other than what it takes to keep their lives together for the sake of survival. We all know what this is like, of course. It cannot be negated. But we are here to master survival so that we can move into higher states of awareness and being. It is said that something like 90% of humanity has lived without having pierced the first veil since what happened did. Here it can also be assumed that less incarnated humans have ever pierced all of the veils. It would appear, though, that we are in a different time, where over the last 20 years, there have been those who have been working to expose not only what's taking place within the first veil, but have pierced things going all the way into things at least to the third, on very profound levels. Fact is, when we come to this knowledge, the more veils you pierce, the less people know in context to a certain knowing upon those mountain gates and summits. And with each veil pierced, exceptionally shrinking numbers of increasingly enlightened people are usually looked upon as crazy or weird by exceptionally increasing masses of decreasingly unaware individuals. So in order to keep the virtual pasture of quote-unquote holographic inserts green, so to speak, the Dark Ones have even been able to successfully bribe individuals that have pierced certain veils, so to speak, especially within the first two, with most not even knowing what they are getting into. Why? First of all, because they are not in connection with their core essence first, and in contact with the higher force and the core intelligence. And many who have pierced the veils otherwise can become highly manipulated in order to misdirect others who are approaching truth in many areas of their personal journey. While what these people are saying and presenting is nothing more than information to keep them in the loop. Most here within the first steps of the journey, unfortunately, end up trading their divine birthright for a worthless mess of a number of things, assuming what they are seeing or experiencing in context is the end-all to be-all, let alone brings things into a watered-down, twisted version of metaphysical bullshit that is not only promulgated by the New Age movement and religion, but also organized occultism, and is never going to get people to where they have been led to believe it will. Again, without connection to the higher force, navigating the labyrinth will become nearly impossible. But if connection is made for real, then you will know what it all is with others that remain in alignment with truth past all of it. Others have also been manipulated where certain circumstances related to them are used as leverage and force to keep them silent, keeping them from their true purpose and destiny. But these are things that we must overcome, and that is something that we need to pay attention to, because if none of this was real, then the things that have happened would have never happened, ever. Now, as I've explained to those that have taken the initiation, on the highest levels of manipulation. The very first veil of the lower astral grid works is dark sorcery. And see, it's all very ancient. It's nothing new. You can get into all of the fucking details of many different things. But again, it's to see it all for what the fuck it is and let it the fuck go. As a result here, though, the astral exists in context to the manipulation number 396, in which the total sum of the connected chakra system that most people know about, in light of the 7 chakra system, and the resulting manipulation of the emotional body more than anything else, the collective sum of auras and the subconscious material that we are dealing with here are the cause point for much of the fucked up shit that's actually happening in our world. But knowing the difference, again, here is key. So you got to understand that the astral is artificial. If you want to talk about AI and all this other shit that's already been covered on this platform, it's to know that it's a layer of energy only visible and accessible via the human psyche because it was created by the human psyche, the manipulation of the human psyche, okay? And it's basically positioned between the 3rd and the 4th dimensions and is an artificial interdimensional plane where there's a lot of static, so to speak. This means that it's not visible to non-solidified energy systems and their consciousness compositions in context to the emotional body. In other words, the mental body is cut the fuck off from being able to discern, from being able to know the fucking difference. And if nothing gets through in order to pierce this shit, let alone seeing it all for what it is so that things can be transmuted, then it's never going to be seen for what the fuck it is. Now, it's been said that the exact details of all of this have been hidden by those that work to control the fucking reality field. However, the construction of all of this links things up in context to a distorted pillar within the planetary Templar. It's designed to basically create the energy of antagonism among the 12 original race lines and has been clearly seen throughout history, even to things leading up to our present moments, especially this fucking year. And so you have to know that the astral in context is an extension of this, which uses reverse emission fields as well as linking up energy systems to this with fragmented genetics within the core of the chakras themselves. Now, mind you, this is nothing to do with the original template in context to the 3 core chakra system. This is what we are working to integrate back into. The things having to do with the mental body are also being affected upon here in context, which is where programs are inserted in context to all of this artificial crystalline technology fucking bullshit. And from there, the fragments or shards that must be integrated back into the original at the core of the chakras respond to certain signals which are emitted from the distorted pillar. Now, if anybody out there has seen the Dark Crystal, you know where they got the idea for this in context to the real shit, which ultimately is designed to control the mental and emotional bodies. That is the makeup of the etheric body. And again, I'm just talking about the manipulation here. I'm not saying that the mental and emotional bodies are evil or fucking bad or anything like that. It's to understand context to the overlay. And depending on what genetic fragments are coded to fit specific programs, each individual is going to react and respond in different ways to this shit. Now to the Kundara. This is what has been really fucked with in context to everything to keep us from our connection to the higher force. And see, it's easy to get lost, again, in all of the details of any construction, which in turn can actually become a mental distortion if things are not seen for what the fuck they are. You got to see it for what it is. Don't get lost in all the fucking details. If you want to pick it apart and dissect it and then put it back together so that you know how it fucking works, okay, fine. But again, you got to see it for what the fuck it is. And you got to pierce this fucking shit. And see, it's what you're going to actually do knowing the difference, not allowing any of this stuff to have its effect on you. And that is what we need to know in context to what is viable in order to move through things. And again, many can go on and on about all of the fucked up details. Fine, that's fine for awareness. I'm not against that. But here, we have to be able to see things for what the fuck they are, like I was saying. Now, with all of this, I'm going to take this segment now into a break. When I return, I will continue to dive deeper This is Sethikus Boza, Blackearth Productions. I will be right back. Welcome back, everyone, from the break. Again, this is Sethikus Boza, Blackearth Productions. Here with the long-awaited Labyrinth of the 9 Veilz presentation. As humanity utilized the chakra system imposed to the periphery nervous system as well as the central nervous system, it is by nerve induction the technology of the nervous system regulates how our thought and emotion operate. And many have grown accustomed to the astral energies produced not knowing that this is completely fucking unnatural. And think of all the ways that the energy system is blasted upon. And while many still respond and react to the programs of the lower astral grid works, the human psyche, again, which is the makeup of the mental and emotional bodies here in context, are developed in this. And this is what the fuck has to change. It has to be overcome. It has to be seen for what it is. And consequently, the astral is essentially man-made through the manipulation of thought and emotion. Again, this is the radar of mind. And learning how to think things on purpose and how to feel into things on purpose is how you override the distortions here in context, knowing the fucking difference. So when a specific quote-unquote program is set in motion by all of this fucking shit, it initiates and impulses affecting fragments within the core of the targeted chakras. And from the activation of the core here in context to those distortions. And to this, energies can be produced affecting the perimeter of each chakra to make them spin, setting an individual into an ultra amplified emotional state of consciousness. Again, look at what the fuck has happened. Now it doesn't mean that we don't feel. Okay, feeling is very important. Emotion is very important. I'm talking about shit that's going to take someone into a fucking blackout episode here in context. This kind of spin here emits a certain type of frequency, and this frequency in turn initiates the cascade of electrochemical reactions in the body within the glands and the periphery nervous system specifically. So in context to the lower chakras, when this happens and it's not being regulated by the intelligence of the heart in connection to the higher force, well, the fucking results are across the board. And all of the dark magic and religious systems or whatever the fuck else, institutions and things I'm going to mention here in a little bit, have made many areas of the lower astral into a place where all sorts of entities and bullshit exists. And it's to note here that I, again, do not advocate astral projection whatsoever. Naturally, the earlier blood sacrifices and inverted bullshit performed by the ancients who were tricked and circumvented all over the world added initial levels to the lower astral in context to these things, because this is what the fuck they feed upon. This all includes the levels where the dark ones feed upon the triangulation to the manipulation of the spindle of the energy force itself in context, and have perverted both men, women, children of all times, using the dark arts and brutality and the like to personify their intentions. Consequently, when we take up the task of reconstructing the chakra system, taking things back to the original, we have to learn how to control the sea of astral energies we are moving through. And see, there's no escaping this and all of the illusions and getting rid of the chakra system, and hence lose the connection to the points that we need within ourselves in order to integrate back into the original. Because if the chakra system was actually removed, there would be no response to anything. You wouldn't have a fucking energy system. This has to be done naturally by moving through the veils in order to cleanse and purge our systems and integrate back into the original template, which again is a 3-core chakra system. Coming to a place of power within the mind and body and soul so that the eternal spirit and the higher self can integrate and actualize itself and achieve the tool to protect. And in order to cleanse and alter the aura, this is done with the power to take control of the inner worlds as well if it was actually removed. We have to learn how to take control of our energy system, and from there learn how to deprogram the energy centers and recreate them in order to take back control of everything here in context. And it's to note, again, that the chakra system, it's not all bad. It's just to know how things have been manipulated otherwise here in context. And when we have cleansed enough through the process of the alchemical rites of initiation, we can use our mental and emotional energies here in context to our benefit. Why? Because now we know, and now we're not going to be affected upon. And since they are a very intrinsic part of our energy system, as well as doing our part to take out all of the artificial layers and remove them from the planetary grid works, you got to know that the chakra system can transfer energy both ways, coming into the chakras and out from the chakras. Okay? What are we evoking? What are we setting forth as intention? What are you doing to push out and allow this shit to move over you and through you, going through the process of awakening? See, the fear of being controlled, or the idea that you're being controlled, has to be overcome and pull things into alignment to connection with the higher force and our core intelligence. Also things in context to the pillars of the planetary Templar. And again, this all goes back to the 12 original race lines here in context, and the grid works of Earth herself. So to this, it is important to acknowledge that certain areas that are completely controlled by the lower astral bullshit have to go into evaporation in terms of calcination and putrefaction. This is the cause point for all of the decay in our fucking reality field. Acknowledging the fact that the astral has destroyed a lot more than what has been contributed in certain timelines. Thus, we are to discern what has to be cleansed. Now, the first veil also consists of many things besides all of these levels of dark sorcery. In turn, though, it moves through things into all of the lower tier bullshit. And of course, coming into the understanding, and of course, especially coming into the realm of geo-corporate politics, which deals with government and institutions on every level of humanity. All of the wars, all of the slavery, all of the fear, all of the shit that is being done to children. Here, everybody. See, we as men and women need to wake the fuck up. And there are many things that I have addressed over the years that have not been listened to. I know what the fuck I'm talking about. And my concern and my care and my passion to see the liberation of generations is intact. And all the shit that is to do with the construct of the miasma that takes all of our life force energy. Much of it is to do with the structure of the mainstream media and how society has been constructed. And see, I knew that shit even when I was younger. Everybody takes jobs. Everyone takes on beliefs. Many will protest war, protest society structure and opposition in a cry for freedom. But again, most people do not know how reality works in context to the universal laws of metaphysics and the eternal axioms. And so you're thrown into the goddamn fucking spinner rack. I don't see anything wrong with becoming spiritually zealous or necessarily an activist that's going to participate in all of this in some sort of way. But there is not enough viable, proper knowledge and wisdom still that needs to be known. First, to lay the proper foundation and context to initiation through everything, and then start reaching into areas and form of life here on Earth that we must get back to. And the list goes on and on of how our lives and ideas and those held within the first veil have developed a perspective and programming to the first veil. Both sides of the equation, triangulated and polarized with the 3 and the 6. And no matter how you look at it, we need to ultimately work towards the advancement of overcoming slavery. So you got to understand that governments are controlled by corporations. And what does every corporation have? A goddamn fucking entity. Corporate entity. Everybody. Every corporation is an entity, most of which, in context to those that are working in this positions, are subject to getting their life force energy sucked the fuck dry. And so you got to understand that this is the cornerstone of control in the third dimension. So to the Hegelian dialectic, order out of chaos. This is a reflection of the 396 operating here in 3D. I'm talking about the manipulation. True magic is knowing how to organize chaos. It's not the fucking same. And all things here are shaped in ways that those in this power structure and hierarchy see fit to control your fucking ass. And see, most everybody out there is conditioned from the early days of childhood and indoctrination to accept this shit. Education, again, religion, politics, media, entertainment, the sports and the music industry, and many other institutions and organizations that are set up in places to be the primary quote-unquote voices of influence and quote-unquote authority, and are literally put there in place to shape and mold society, as well as themselves being subject to control and slavery. They are order followers. They don't know how to think, and the orders which have been given from the upper levels will lock you in to the first veil. Here you will also come to understand that conclusively that the resources of Earth also include humanity as a resource, and is controlled by extremely wealthy, quote-unquote, elite bloodline families and those working for them who incorporate old world assets with modern extortion strategies as the foundation upon which the entire world's economy and structure is currently indebted. And again, 90% of the people which are held within the first veil will live and die physically without having pierced on into the second veil. But before I get into all of that, I want to explain things in context to the astral body itself. The etheric body generated in context to energies from the lower astral grid works of consciousness have their basis in light of the manipulation of our energy centers and the chakra system. The etheric body is the basis again of the human psyche when it comes to the mental and emotional bodies. Now, some things to consider to the Veilz here in context also include things in light of the merged auras of your parents, things in context to the karmic imprinter that have allegedly been inserted into the core of the chakra blueprint. There's the chakra blueprint itself, and then things in context to the instinctual layer with coding stemming from that karmic imprinter, which in turn has an effect on the genetic fragments and shards in the center of each chakra when it comes to the mental body specifically. Again, here it's important to note that there is no karma but ignorance. So don't be willfully ignorant in context to things that come up that are nothing to do with you. It's not you, and it needs to be seen for what it is. So yeah, don't be willfully ignorant to these things that I'm sharing with you. Here is where we are to override and overcome these things from within ourselves. Taking the emotional layers, transmitting the coding from the lower astral, which is also fucking with the perimeter of the chakras. Thus the subconscious layer with suppressed energetic interaction potential of the aura. And in context to patterning, which is generated into the energetic patterns in the aura controlled by that karmic bullshit and programming from the lower astral grid works. Again, this is to do with bias, it's to do with triggers, it's to do with distortions, and all of these things that are not who the fuck we actually are. And see, it's this layer specifically that fucks with the perception in context to ego. And see, the ego is the will force of the individual, and in context to things being overshadowed when it comes to the soul spark, this is how things are triangulated in upon in context. So it's very easy to see when someone's in their ego that's been overshadowed. Again, there's nothing wrong with ego. Ego is that soul spark essence that needs to be ignited by the higher force so that the gates of true intelligence are thus opened to the individual. Now, these layers mentioned are connected to the individual aspect of the etheric body and contain the shit that we got, again, from our parents, things that must be cleansed and purged in context to our bloodlines, the blood codes, like I've been talking about for a while now. So when it comes to the fundamental layers, we have to use what we got in order to create different, to create better, knowing the difference. Because trust me, going through this process, things are going to kick out. There's going to be behavior issues. There's going to be all sorts of things that happen. But again, it has to be seen for what it is and not judged, given cushion, and not taken personally. And of course, your emotional reactions in turn, which need to be responses in alignment with true intelligence. Because there are certain energy patterns that hold memory. And when things are triggered, all of that suppressed shit in context to psychological content come flying the fuck out. So the subconscious is thus our energy patterns, and together with these layers, they are in a sense what creates the aura. Again though, once connection with the higher force is established, you really begin to burn out and move through these things. And what we meet in the etheric realm, if anything here in context, and depends on the composition of energies and fragments in the chakra system as well as the subconscious mind field itself. It is therefore impossible to assume that just because you're dealing with something means it's who the fuck you are. And to get a full overview of the different layers of the etheric realm and everything that it actually consists of, it's to note for every man and woman that there is an individual section of the lower astral in which entities and bullshit reflect back to the man or woman conscious and subconscious content. But the more we work with the perimeter of the chakras, the more we are working through Veilz here. And in our cleansing process, we encounter the energies and their corresponding content within the lower astral. Not everything that reflects itself back to you, so you have to become the observer. It's like, okay, I see this for what it is, and then you release that shit. You don't sit there and assume that that's what you are at the core, because who you are at the core is what is driving you to move through these things. And in our cleansing process, we can encounter the energies and their corresponding content, like I was saying, within the lower astral. And also from there, build up all of the layers and different types of the lower astral fucking entities. So all of that shit is fucking bullshit. As well as the energetic content of our etheric body as it unfolds through the healing process, going through the alchemical rites of initiation. And so you go from normal human emotion to the subconscious, where all of this fucking bullshit's happening, and then even further into the collective, which is where things stand right now, and so forth in the quest, releasing all of these things that do not serve us. And I'm talking about the thoughts and the emotions which amplify all of this fucking bullshit. That is what needs to be released. When this level is reached, we can come into full control of our etheric body and know how to deal with all the forms and all of the lower astral fucking bullshit. Now see, all of this is easier said than done, of course, and it's to note further that the mental body, compared to the astral plane itself, contains worlds of entities living there, and to an extent unfold a form of artificial bullshit. And its brainwave frequencies that can be compared to a set of coding holding a specific amount of mental energy, which makes the electric circuits all form the encoded sections also of the ley lines of the earth, to those networks implemented into quantum variables and the quantum field itself. And here the mental body has its effect on both the morphogenetic field as well as the planetary morphogenetic field. Alterations that are seen here in context are considered to be a quantum phenomenon. That's all that supernatural shit, right? But on the atomic and molecular level, changing the core of the cell structure itself in this in context to the basic structures of our DNA codex. This is what's happening in light of the alchemical rites of initiation, which in turn are much also to do with epigenetics. Look into that, look into epigenetics, okay? This is going to reflect also these changes in composition with our energy system. And see, the mental body is the mind field. It's the soil, right? And those that have been initiated, it's the soil that the astro-psychological tree is planted in. And in turn could be a mind field. That's right, everybody knows a mind field. What the fuck a mind field is. So get out of your fucking heads. We cannot allow the gears to grind and be pulled in 20,000 different fucking directions. Teach yourself to focus. And again, in light of a lot of things, this has become difficult for many of us that know the fucking difference. The mind field here in context is positioned around the head, right? But it also stretches into the rest of the body due to the connection of the core of the chakras and then the link up from there into the central nervous system. And in turn, has its effect on all of the electric circuitry of the body, it also affects the core of the cell structure itself. Are you starting to see how this works here? The mind field thus alters the DNA from the inside out, whereas the etheric body and what is going on there with it affects the cell structures from the inside out. The mind field holds the energetic patterns generated by thought forms. And the more we work with teaching ourselves how to focus, even though we're moving through a lot of fucking shit, especially this year, we can come into that place of no mind, so to speak. And that is where the silence of chatter and gears grinding can come to a halt. From here, we can focus and regulate how our thought and emotion operates as individuals and take back the nervous system, take back the technology. Here, we must work to clear the mind field daily, and so that our mind field is not limited with certain ranges of frequencies. Again, this is why we are getting blasted with all of the fucking shit that we fucking are. So to that as well, know the fucking difference that most of it is not even you. Who are you? What is you? Now next, I'm going to be getting into the second veil, from context to the void, which again has nothing to do with the primordial womb of the circle of the magician. I will also be doing a recap of the true occult history of the earth and our universe in light of all of this. It is to note again, we as shamans can get back to the real magic that our ancestors were cut off from, given over to all of the counterfeit systems that key you into nothing more than the lower astral grid works of consciousness. And all of this is going to be coming from a deep conviction within my eternal spirit, the soul code, blood code, genetic essence, because of where things are now, back up on the wheel of the great year, coming out of the fifth cycle, which again has been the Atlantean cycle that humanity has been caught in for the last 26,000 fucking years. I've been very patient to the development of what has been happening in network, and to what I have observed, most of everything that is still being made public is still hitting the etheric ceiling. And with all of the spokes that keep getting thrown into the wheel, as they have been, to keep things within an inverted axis of consciousness, we as individuals can get back onto the vertical in trajectory and step off the wheel of madness before what we think to know about anything has its course to all of the encrypted reversals. The fact is that most that think they know what is true concerning these things have not accessed some of the most important factors in context to know the real occult knowledge that needs to be known, let alone how important all of this is in context to our true occult history. This is going to be our charge by the higher force itself to end the 6 cycles that a lot of things have been on and make steps towards walking through the gates of awareness that I'm going to be opening for those that can. And with everything that has led up to this moment, it is to break through certain set barriers within the codex of what has been encrypted within the etheric realm in context to all of this. And I'm going to make it as simple as I can to the extreme detail of everything that all of this really entails, and is going to set the record straight with things on my end when it comes to all of this, so that certain things can be burned away in the ashes of the blackening phase we have been going through as a collective, but even deeper with individuals that have been doing the real work. Now is around the time which was known by the ancients for those that would come to know more of the true occult history of Earth after the long dark night. They knew that it would eventually be revealed and remembered and start to be taught in all the ways that it needed to be. And within the distortions that were set in place over the aeons in context to the manipulated polarity paradigm, again, without specific proper knowledge and wisdom, it is very specific what I'm getting at here. But before I really start taking it into things again, on the recap, the hour that we are in right now, you have to see things for what the fuck it is. Nothing is as what it seems on the surface. We're gonna go ahead and take another break. This is Sethikus Boza, Black Earth Productions. I will be right back. Welcome back again. This is Sethikus Boza, blackearthproductions, Blue Flame, Healing Arts, Occult, Science. And now to continue with Labyrinth of the Nine Veilz. Where I'm going to take things now in this segment is going to force you to stretch beyond current narratives that have limited our progression. And in the coming days and years, this is going to be a major turning point for those who are willing to catch everything I'm going to be getting into. Hopefully, you will be able to cultivate the fact that we are going to be closer to an actual fucking victory here in alignment to the ultimate good in context if we continue forward beyond the veils of where things are still at present and continue to deconstruct the lie and destroy the set barriers and set fire to these pits that would consume us, not knowing the difference, so that they can become beacons of warning for others to whom we are proceeding. It's going to be necessary to make the constant choice to be in alignment with truth. And if you actually hear what I'm to be unpacking in this segment, so that they become self-evident, it is going to be a major victory. And for you as the individual, and so to this, as I operate with my personal path work, as I go much deeper into the occult material within this segment, it has only been spoken of with literally a handful of individuals. And as levels of consciousness have been rising in our reality field more than they ever have been the last 26,000 years within the last 20 ancient records, which have been accessed by those that have the gift and have been allowed to pass through certain gates of awareness while going through the process of integrating the teaching and works of those who have preceded us to continue to expand upon a proper foundation. We are now due for a major reformation. And one thing that is very important when it comes to every authentic sage and mystic and magician and poet and philosopher and scholar and researcher, it's to note that the true shaman lines are awakening as they have been. And this is going to be an ode to the ancestors and will be a cry from them to that which is within my blood and my bones. It is, as I've stated, that the real occult knowledge that we need to be tapping into is that which is within the eternal spirit to blood code and soul code genetic codex, given over to specific techniques for activation to take place that will take the individual to places beyond what I could ever reveal in one segment. And for those who come to know the universal laws of metaphysics and the eternal axioms and live them, taking it deeper when it comes to the knowing of how to wield magic correctly into all of the different forms and tomes and offices which can be accessed within the codex. It is this codex to what it potentially reveals to the individual. We are the ones to determine which direction the rudder of reality is going to turn. No matter how big or small it seems, everything we do matters. And more pieces to the equation of our true occult history are going to be recovered in this segment as a massive upgrade of awareness in consciousness. This is going to be a major wall that is torn down to make clear the path behind us, taking things forward, and to find those gates from within beyond the trajectory of where things are still at present. It is to question, again, where the fuck is all of this going, everyone? See here, no one single individual has all of the answers to the questions that you, the listener, may have. And it is to say that the real answers to the questions that you seek are already there within you. It's just a matter of knowing how to extract these things and thus access what is there. And it's what I teach in context to the initiation with our mystery school. Without the proper foundation of initiation into the occult, no one will be able to come to any sort of viable conclusion once you hit the fucking ceiling. And to these ancient records, they have been unearthed again in context to what I'm going to be sharing with you. Be aware and take great heed, as I am now going to begin to weave pieces to this specific equation into something more comprehensive when it comes to our ancient past, our present moments, and the trajectory
of future timelines that will be unfolding, working in unison on all levels that you still cannot imagine.
And see to this, the unity that is still working to be achieved, and all of the blocks that are preventing that is the process that we're still going through in terms of awakening and healing through things in context to
The Inyani massacre, which is touched upon with the Keylontic sciences. This was the main event in our ancient past going into prehistory that began the avalanche of betrayal in the face of the Magi Grail shaman and the ancient wisdom councils themselves. In 25,500 BC, this is when the Dark Luciferian rebellion began. It is important to note that the effect that all of this has had is still the effect to why things are the way they are at present. The aim at first was to offset the 23,500 BC stellar activation, and is also happening with the current stellar activation, which started in the year 2000. Taking things back though, at this time, the Inyani Magi Grail shaman were finally in position to override the dark diotic crystal pillar gridworks that had been encrypted within the consciousness gridworks of the planetary Templar complex, which again goes back to the crack within the planetary Templar, sealing out the Grail of consciousness and the original template onto the infinite feedback loop and time cycles of the Ouroboros. And to this, the Magi Grail shaman, along with the wisdom councils, have been working thousands of years to reach this point of breaching the rift. So to the true purpose of incarnation here on earth was to become a partaker of the biospiritual regenesis. It is again to note that past, present, and future are all happening now in our present moments in context. And if you haven't caught what I've said in context to that, go and listen to what has been previously presented here on Black Earth Productions. And it's still to the fact right now that a lot of people in network didn't catch what the fuck I said. And you are still in the wheel of the Black Knight ignorance within the consciousness units of mankind. All of the proper knowledge and wisdom that has to do with every single blood code to soul code, race, line, lineage, to everything here in our reality field and universe. They hold all of our true occult history with this, the original arts and sciences. These are frequency holders and transmitters of knowledge. They transmit frequency that activates the signet shields. And again, as I've stated, the word signet means Stargate. And there are 12 signet shields in context to the planetary Templar with the true universal tree of life. The signet were given to all of the 12 original race line remote activators. It is not the same as it is today, with corrupt rulers and power to government and sadistic corporate entities that have enslaved humanity, that rape children, that feed off the blood of the fucking innocent. You cannot activate the shields unless you have codex accessed within the blood codes and soul codes themselves. That is why blood code to soul code lineage is so fucking important to know and can only be activated by certain individuals to unveil. Again, to the biospiritual regenesis. And see, I know this shit is real because I had direct physical encounter with the higher force. And see, I cannot passionately enough say that the higher force is absolutely real. This is the missing ingredient factor to the ignition that is meant to fire up our systems in a way where we cannot hold back from actualizing everything that is there within the core, puts you in alignment, and it sets you on course to become the cause point for everything. You're not going to conform. You're not going to bow. You're going to see everything for what the fuck it is, and you're not going to allow this shit. Now, one thing about the Inyani specifically that I want to touch upon here, that the concept of twin flames comes from who the Inyani were, genetically bonded together on a 12D multidimensional level. This in turn all goes back to the cosmic law of gender. They have strands 1 through 6 separate in context to their physical form on a multidimensional level, but strands 7 through 12 are bonded and united with them.
on a spirit to soul code level on strands 7 through 12. Yet on a blood code level, it is on strands 1 through 6, which again expresses itself here in Midgard to the law of gender as male and female divine counterparts. It's this right fucking here. So you got to understand that is where they came from, everyone. That is what they are. They were created for full access to knowledge of what was stolen and to what people have come to know, and is where the genetic codes became distorted with all of the overlays and context to stellar genetics. Women were and still are the main target. When the stellar activation came back around after aeons in the year 2000, also leading up to things in 2012, it's to note that we're about to cross a major threshold, 2020. And it's to say in full conviction that many are still being raked the fuck out into their grid works of consciousness via the New Age movement, which is all tied to the dark occult. With all of you that think that you've stumbled upon advanced knowledge, all of this in context to the New Age movement specifically was the true beginning of the externalization of the hierarchy, which was stated would happen, rolling these teachings out to the masses along with many other things for public consumption. And that's what the fuck has happened, everybody. You think you know, you still don't fucking know. All of you so-called light worker are running on their teaching, and you are part of their agendas. And to all of the Hermetic teaching that was first originally part of CDT plate disc 11. This is what those of us know the difference to and are taking it back in context to cosmic law, to what the fuck I've been working to do this whole time on Black Earth Productions. And as I have stated for years now, I am taking things back to the fucking original. And for those that still don't know the game of the real occult history, if you don't know these things, then you've been part of the indoctrination, their indoctrination, and the dark occult false light agendas. You need to wake the fuck up and be initiated into the real to crush your indoctrination to slavery and reach into that which is beyond what the dark ones have encrypted. Listen, I'm saying all of this in great care because after a certain time in context to what is unfolding, there's going to be no turning back for you, and you will get leashed the fuck out on levels you still cannot imagine. I have already seen what the fuck is going to happen if people don't wake the fuck up. I'm here to speak to people that are going to hear, it's not up to me for you, it's up to you for you. This is about being the cause point, not being bound to the realm of effects. And so further, members of the ancient wisdom councils were originally in the position to protect and preserve the sacred wisdom records for the future benefit of the earth and mankind as a whole here in Midgard when it comes to the grid works of consciousness on both the solar and galactic spirals of creation. Thus, those assembled in the ancient High Syrian Alfarian Wisdom Council were among the primary lineage of the Magog-Rail Shaman as the Emerald Order. They were keepers of the blue flame grid works of consciousness upon the three spirals of creation and the true universal tree of life. They were the primary archivists of Earth's vast genetic library. They were scribes, teachers, wisdom keepers, mystics, magicians, wizards, and shamans who were responsible for assembling, cataloging, and managing valuable collections in all of the metaphysical sciences. True historical information for mapping out the DNA codex that functions as the genetic library for creation throughout all of the 12 original organic race line timelines, and knowledge and wisdom in general when it comes to life. Their knowledge was originally compiled into 12 master copy disk technologies, which were the original tablets of the Emerald Order. Not the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. It was the tablets of the Emerald Order, and it was these original tablets, and they were the encrypted principal teachings which were known even before the era and the rise of the Lemurian and Atlantean timelines. Administered trials of initiation, chosen and went through the rites of passage in order to gain potential full access to the grid works of consciousness. This was to succeed way showers for others incarnating into the reality field, who in turn had to face all the trials before these codes of awareness could ever fully activate and integrate to unfold within these individuals who were to hold record. There was specific blood code and soul code race line genetics that were the only thing that could activate them. Each race had their own specific trajectory to this. And the ancient wisdom councils were the original overseers who were in the position as guardians and teachers of specific planetary stargates among those to their specific blood code, race line, lineages, and tribes. And were in the position to teach the consciousness mechanics of reality, the unification of all expressions to sound, consciousness, energy, frequency, and vibration, streamlining into physicality in alignment with the higher force itself. How to tap the true core essence and codex that is there from within to gain access to the true universal tree of life itself. One must understand that they are protected and can only be administered to activate through the blood code and soul code genetics. To this knowledge specifically, this goes deeper into the planetary Templar and what the Grail of Consciousness actually is. If you want to know more about that, go check out Magi Grail Shaman, Mystery of the Grail of Consciousness, as a part of the Magi Grail Shaman archives. It does not mean that you cannot know it. And more importantly, you must know thyself. That's more important than anything else, because you're not going to even come to the place of knowing how to wield the mechanics of the planetary Templar until that happens, which they must for what is meant. And see, nowadays, this has nothing to do with some kind of weekend seminar, and now you're certified to be a shaman or a magician, which in most cases are watered down, let alone distorted in context to the teaching that's been presented. And to how the real works here in context to this. There are those, again, who are put through very real, rigorous initiations to be able to hold and carry and wield the sacred knowledge and wisdom throughout multiple timelines, which is to do with other worlds and other universes, to where we stand here in Midgard, which again is our physical world and physical universe. We are protectors of the related information access within our multidimensional DNA codex. And during our current and future timeline cycles for future generations, this is where I will continue to take things with our mystery school. For we are the 6 root races here in Midgard, meant to cross the threshold that we have now into the new aeon. Now, other things in terms of the second veil. One thing that is very important to know about this specifically are the encryptions in context to the void. Now, if anybody out there has experienced interface with spirits, entities, angels, demons, alien factions, light beings, all of this other phenomenon, it's important to note here that you yourself have your own eternal spirit in connection to grid works of consciousness that are beyond the second veil. Now, what most people don't understand about the void is that this is nothing to do with the vortex and a lot of other ways of explaining what is there with the all. The all, here in context, is another term for the higher force. And again, the way we make connection to that is by throwing the circle of the magician correctly. I am not in the business of invocation of spirits, entities, conjuring, none of that shit. You don't need to do any of that. In fact, people that do and that are in the business of this are trading out their eternal birthright in context to assuming power, thinking that there isn't that wellspring within themselves to tap. And so all of the bullshit that's been promulgated, first of all by religion, next to New Age, and then of course organized occultism. It is to note here again that this is where the dark gods sprang forth. And they can come in the guise of fucking anything. That's the deal here. So how do you actually know that what you're having interface with, that this is in fact what you're having interface with? Most people do not have very strong spiritual discernment to know the difference, let alone know the true occult history of how all of this works in context to what I'm getting at. And that's the danger here. All you got to do is mark out the histories, and see what has happened. Now, in terms of the Veilz here, the etheric realm is where the real war is taking place. And in terms of the first veil, in light of the manipulation of the etheric body, this is what the fuck is happening. Again, we have our own eternal spirit to blood code, soul code essence that must be integrated and actualized. This is the real great work here in context to what I'm getting at. Now, it's not to say you're not going to have any sort of supernatural phenomenon take place. It's to know the fucking difference here. And knowing the difference, you can stand in that place of sovereignty and not give away your power, not give away your thoughts, not give away your emotion, not give away your body to be infiltrated by any of these things. And when you stand there within the fulcrum and you know how to throw energy correctly, you stand protected no matter what the fuck is going on. And on a side note, if they can't get to you, they might try to work through other people around you, unwittingly. And here's where many unfortunate things can happen. Otherwise, that is why accountability and proper knowledge and wisdom is necessary, knowing the fucking difference. So if shit's going the fuck down, you can call it out for what the fuck it is, and need to call it out for what the fuck it is, and not allow these things to pull everything into the fucking void. The void, in other terms, the abyss, this is what we need to be bridging in terms of the alchemical rites of initiation, and in terms of learning how to master human consciousness. This is why we incarnated, to master being human. It's not dirty to be human. You're not less than to be human. We need to axe these ideologies out of our hearts and our minds and our speech, of the significance of why we are here. And yeah, we're being pulled on in 20,000 different directions. Why do you think this is taking place? Because they don't want you to actualize what I'm getting at here in context. And there's many different ways these inverted forces can work to make sure that that doesn't fucking happen. I mean, just look around you. Look at what's been happening this year, on top of all of the transits and the retrogrades and the eclipse energy and all this fucking stuff. They are capitalizing on this now. And so even when I go out and I see people living their lives, many people are not aware of this. So they don't pose any sort of fucking threat. They don't pose any sort of true, authentic opposition to what the fuck is going on. They are being used to basically continue to fuel line the fucking grid works that have been laced out in order to enslave mankind. So in terms of the contrast and everything going on around us, it is important to know the fucking difference and have a voice and speak out and teach and do whatever you fucking can to let other people fucking know this shit. Whether it's on a basic level to advanced or whatever the fuck. You have to take your position knowing the fucking difference, because if you don't, the situation for that individual is going to end up worse. It's worse to know and not do. If you're coming into this knowledge, if you're coming into these sorts of things and you're not doing something to put out any sort of teaching or let other people fucking know, it would have been better for you to have never known the truth than to have started in it and then not continue. We have to continue. We have to see things through. That's why encouragement and empowerment is so fucking necessary. And I get it, the pressure to conform, the pressure to cave in, the pressure to compromise, the integrity of what is there within the core is immense. But at what fucking cost? At what cost, really? Ask yourselves this, because we, as individuals that know the difference, have to be doing something, taking action towards this in whatever capacity we can, no matter how big or small it is. This is also a major part of healing here in context, because once you start to focus and once you start to actualize and once you start to speak forth and once you start to do something in a creative capacity, it's going to set this forth. You're going to be focused. You're not going to be pulled on in 20,000 different fucking directions with all this fucking bullshit. And this is what the trivium lays the fuck out. Unless you're stepping up and doing some shit for real, then you're not really fucking awake. It's not what I said. It's what the universal laws of metaphysics and the eternal axioms declare. So know the difference and recognize your position, you that are hearing my voice right now, because the hour that we are in at the moment, this is absolutely necessary, no matter what the fuck it looks like on the surface. You are able. You are capable. You do have that power and ignition within you to step forth in whatever capacity that you can. and not allow that which is within the second veil to suck you the fuck in. Now, on a very important side note, if this is stuff that you're dealing with, then you need to deal with it. You need to move through it. You need to see it for what it is and not necessarily put yourself out, but take the time to go through the healing process necessary, because it is a process here. And I'm not saying that everybody out there needs to be on the front fucking lines, because in order to really tap into that essence of who we are, we have to go through the process, again, of the alchemical rites of initiation, moving through these things. So I am by no means negating that. I'm going to empower the endeavor here so that we can continue to encourage and empower the process that is taking place while standing our ground when it comes to a lot of different things. I am by no means negating the fact that not everybody out there is necessarily ready for that level. But whatever level you're at, it is to encourage the fact it's worth moving through all of these things in order to obtain. And once that ignition takes place for real, you will know the difference, and then set forth the endeavor. The universe abhors a fucking vacuum. What the fuck do you think the void is? So the abhorrence, here in context, is why I ignite this passion and speak the way that I do when it comes to certain fucking things. Because of the care that is actually coming forth my core essence. And this is how we have to be. If we're really going to see what we know, this is how we have to be. With a very, very strong conviction, knowing the difference, and not allowing ourselves to compromise the integrity of what we know. Go ahead and take this into another break now. This is Sethikus Boza, Black Earth Productions. When I return, I will dive next into the third veil. Welcome back again. Well, this is Sethikus Boza, Black Productions. Now next, I want to dive into the third veil. And the third veil, in light of this pathwork, is more of a sound step in terms of the etheric realm, where there's a lot to be considered in context to visions and dream states, and has much to do with the subconscious mind field. Now, if anybody out there is into things in terms of dream interpretation, dream time symbolism, then you're going to want to pay attention, especially to everything I'm about to get into. Now, no matter how much one enjoys community, sleep forces us to be alone. And it's in our aloneness that we sometimes have others born from ourselves, other parts of ourselves who will step into our dreams. And again, here in terms, it's important to note that focus on the higher force in context to everything is the most important component to this pathwork. And in dream time and coming into visions, you can experience many different forms and sounds and images and colors. And in terms of the higher force, we have to invite it into our dance here in context. This, in other terms, is what it means to go lucid. So in terms of the progression of going into a sleep state, NREM is stage 1, and is the transition period between wakefulness and sleep, and lasts around 5 to 10 minutes. Stage 2, when stage 2 starts to take place, the body temperature drops and your heart rate begins to slow down. And the brain field begins to produce sleep spindles and lasts allegedly for about 20 minutes or so. The third stage of NREM is when the muscles start to relax, your blood pressure and breathing rate drop. And this is where the deepest sleep actually occurs. But during REM time, this is when you start to go lucid. It is when the brain becomes more active, the body becomes relaxed and essentially immobilized. And this is where our dream states are occurring. And one way to tell if someone's dreaming is if their eyes are moving rapidly under their eyelids. Most of us, when we're awake, we might close our eyes to minimize visual distractions during times of meditation and contemplation, where we may reach more deeply into ourselves, avoiding the distractions of the world. Now, I want to explain something here in terms of magic specifically, when it comes to the obsidian slab that most ceremonial magicians use in order to see into the ethers or whatever the fuck, okay? Now, I'm going to tell you a secret. The true black mirror here in context is the back of your fucking eyelids, all right? There are many times when I've gone into a lucid state and then all of a sudden I start to see different patterns and different colors and different images start to come forth back of my eyelids. Now, it's very interesting, but what I see most of the time when I'm doing this is the blue flame itself. It sort of moves and flows in me and through me and around me. I don't know how to explain this, but this is what I see most of the time. But I can pinpoint onto the true black mirror here in context, the 3 spirals of creation that I always talk about. And you can even mold and shape certain things in context to a lot of the things that do come up, and you just play with it. You play with the energies. Again, everything is energy. Different times while doing this, I've also been able to remote view. I've been able to travel other universes. I've been able to travel other fucking worlds. I've been able to travel the stars and all of this amazing stuff that we are actually capable of as individuals. But see, we're not taught these things. We're not given over to being able to flow, knowing the difference to these things. And so most people, when they go to sleep, they don't dream. And if their psyche is overstimulated with all the fucking bullshit stimulus and entertainment and all this other kind of stuff, you sure as hell aren't going to fucking dream unless you have a certain disposition. Those that are water signs, mainly in the first 3 pillars, are going to indefinitely have very profound dream states. I almost guarantee no matter what. But you got to be careful what you take in the windows of your soul, because anything you take in is on an unconscious level programming the subconscious. So again, be very careful what you put in front of your eyes, especially when it comes to an obsidian slab, let alone the back of your eyelids. Because again, it is what you are observing from the physical eye going then the third eye to the first eye. Why the fuck do you think that the television was invented? The television to fuck with your vision, to fuck with your radar. Most people, they still do not fucking know how detrimental all of this is to the third eye and the first eye. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with observing certain fucking things, but what are you taking in? But again, the true mirror of the magician, the true magician, it's the back of your eyelids, everybody. You yourself are the ritual, and all the key components in order to conduct ritual are there from within. They're there with the physical body. Everything else in context to ceremony is an extension in order to get your state of mind focused on a specific intention. Now, certain individuals need this in order to focus. I completely understand here in light of a lot of the things that I'm sharing with you, but those that are truly versed know, just like I said, that you are the ritual, you are the ceremony. You have all of the tools that you need, given the technology, the true technology of who we are. But in terms of dream states, they do actually reach a much higher level of eliminating distractions. And when you go lucid, there can be fewer entanglements of distraction that you're going to deal with in context to ordinary dreams. Ordinary dream states will come to you in terms of recall after you wake up, this or that, and you might get flashes of this or that. But when you go lucid, holy fucking shit, there are dream times and dream states and visions that I've had going lucid that were just as real as this reality. And I've had many amazing visions and dream states. Also things in context to nightmares and night terrors, which I'm going to get into here in a little bit. But it's during these times that we're not disturbed by the worldly concerns. And so you don't want to get into all of this in terms of escapism either. This is just so that you can move through shit and then get back to your daily existence and start kicking fucking ass. But pay attention to your dream states. Pay attention to your visions. Because there is a lot that is revealed to the individual when these things are happening, especially about themselves. And depending on the contents of the dream, the essential part of the experience that we're having here needs to take our attention. And so you can't simply just forget the past and the rest of the world and be in fucking la la land and all this other shit. Now, in order to know the science and spirituality of lucid dreaming, you need to see how you can use lucid dreaming to relate with your fears in order to ease you along the path in terms of your inner growth and healing. Now, here in context, unresolved psychological conflicts tend to be symbolically represented if you are experiencing nightmares and night terrors. We need to be able to transmute and transform these things. And again, it's always to be in the place of observation while going into these experiences. Now, things in terms of your dream states or visions being quote unquote prophetic. This is a little bit different. And as far as I'm concerned, has a lot to do with advanced lucid dreaming in connection to the higher force itself. What I'm talking about in context to what I want to focus on, though, is what we're moving through in terms of piercing the third veil and the manipulation that takes place in context to those things that keep us repressed, suppressed, restrained, and held back within ourselves when it comes to the relationship that we have with ourselves. If you come into a vision or a dream state that is prophetic, the energy of it is completely different in terms of what I'm getting at. Say something that is absolutely fucking amazing, or into other spectrums in terms of nightmares and night terrors, you're going to be completely neutral with it. That's the difference in terms of things being quote unquote prophetic. You're going to be neutral. You're not going to be emotionally affected upon here in context. You will come out of it, of course, with a lot of questions to the answers that were revealed during a quote-unquote prophetic vision. And this happens in the case of seers and seeress in terms of the Seth and Galder shamanic practitioners. There's one way of explaining things here in context. Of course, shamanism is in every race, tribe, and culture in terms of animism and the true traditions and rites of the ancient ancestors here in context. And when dream content seems to threaten your sense of safety and security within yourself, This is when our dream states turn into nightmares. And from the subconscious, unconscious mind field, you are now projecting upon the lens these things that you're actually dealing with in terms of the self. Okay, I've had nightmares, I've had night terrors. I think we all know what this is like. But this isn't the only type of dream state that you can have. Again, it's all about our state of fucking mind here. So whatever distresses come up during these experiences, here is where you find the things that need to be transmuted and overcome and seen for what the fuck they are. And the more distressing nightmares an individual may have result in waking with intense negative emotions that are sometimes experienced. And again, this is why communication with a Galder is very fucking important in terms of everything that I'm getting at here with this phase of the segment. See, lucid dreaming, if you can master your lucid states and create from that place, problem-solving potential presents a unique opportunity in order to basically renegotiate these nightmare and night terror situations so that you have an increased sense of safety and security within yourself and can experience freedom and break the normal fucking rules of that which is quote-unquote ideal for transforming our existence. Because the mind never rests. The mind is always aware. The mind is always on. It's only the physical body that needs rest. And see, we as humans, we are all wired to seek happiness and avoid our pain and discomfort and all this fucking shit, right? But there's a lot of problems that arise when our automatic responses to challenges keep us stuck, so to speak, running away from our fears, fighting with ourselves, which in turn can project itself in terms of our relationships with other people. And we need to be doing enough here in context to personal path work in order to resolve these issues and keep communication in a flow. And see, when someone's experiencing extreme nightmares and night terrors, this can put them in cycles between fight or flight or freeze responses in waking life, which has long been ingrained in our evolutionary history to help us adapt and survive. It's, you know, you just go into fucking survival mode and it's all fucking fear-based. And this is where we need to break through the fucking walls and the barriers in terms of the third veil. And I'm talking about the manipulation of our dream states here in context, because say if you wake up and you're swinging or screaming or whatever, yeah, you're getting fucked with. I've experienced this as well. Or in turn, you are moving through something. So it is to note that whatever the fuck is going on in terms of what I'm getting at here, you are piercing and learning how to master this level of the etheric realm when it comes to the mental and emotional bodies. And there are more effective approaches here in context for supporting your personal growth here. And this again is known as self-integration, in which you show a willingness to engage with the uncomfortable or the distressing parts of reality in a way that's going to reflect a deeper connection with the self and with others. You see, people tend to respond to stressful dream states, according to Kristen Lamacara in her book, Learn How to Lucid Dream. And so to these 4 strategies, the first one is to avoid. We avoid it. Again, go back to the second fucking veil. Avoid. What do you think that word means? It means avoid it, the vacuum. So we got to stop avoiding these things and be real with ourselves and be real with the people in our lives and let them in. Now, if you're avoiding something or try to escape something in a dream, you might wake yourself up. You might be running in a dream, running from something. You might be trying to hide from something. You might be trying to fly away from something. You may be avoiding engaging by choosing to do something else as well, like trying to distract yourself. And so here you're being dismissive. You're disregarding things in context to the content as though it's not important or relevant to you. Everything that you experience in a dream state has to do with you and your projections upon whatever it is that you are experiencing. That's what people don't understand about dream time. So we need to take the courage to confront and conquer things here in context. The other 2 here are confront and conquer. And see, this is the attitude that we must have in terms of everything I'm getting at here in context. And just go with the flow. Go with the flow of whatever is coming up. Because from there, you're going to be able to go into that place of self-integration. And so you might fight back or try to defend yourself But these are also how things are playing themselves out in real time. Because again, we're dealing with the subconscious minefield here. And we need to see things for what the fuck they are, be able to step back, relax, and go with the flow. The danger here, though, is that you don't do anything or you keep doing what you were doing already. So it puts you in a place of being passive. But we cannot live life like that. Because if we keep responding to life in the same way, or how we responded to similar challenges in the past or whatever the fuck, you're not going to be progressing. You're going to be regressing. So to come to that place of self-integration, this is an ever-evolving process of becoming more whole and complete as an individual. You recognize that all parts of the dream state or the vision represent something within yourself that may be in conflict, or a part of yourself that you reject, or that you fear, or that you don't accept. And in terms of attempting to reconcile with these unaccepted parts of the self is one of the major goals here of learning how to master your dream states, learning how to master your visions, learning how to master being lucid. Now, going back to things in context to nightmares and night terrors, the storyline of these things need to be seen in order to enhance self-understanding and put you in a position to be able to respond to the stress with a lot more fucking resilience. Now, if individuals want to quick start their evolution, so to speak, then yeah, take some pathogens, peyote, ayahuasca, 5-MeO-DMT, mushrooms, all that shit. Okay? Know that when you do it, though, you are shooting straight into the subconscious, unconscious minefield. And this is why taking pathogens and having someone there in order to interpret what it is that you are experiencing is the right way to work with it. This is how shamans would induct visions and dream states in terms of pathogens here in context. But there have been many fucking cases of individuals that do this, and then they go into this fucking hell realm, nightmare, night terror fucking shit that they're not even fucking ready for. And in order to re-script this shit, taking whatever comes during these experiences and bringing them into new outcomes in your imagination to remind yourself that this is something that you're moving through. It is not the end all to be all. Next, I want to talk about things in context to self-integration and what self-integration actually entails. Self-integration is a concept that has been described throughout human history. And see, this is what the true rites of initiation entail here in context. It's all about creating a connection and bringing harmony between all the parts of oneself. A helpful outlook during dream time is when you view your dream time imagery as representing something about yourself, like I've been saying. And by interacting with these images, you can learn how to defragment your identity and embrace all aspects of who you truly are within the core essence. This includes your unrecognized strengths, as well as the parts that you dislike about yourself in context. And see, this process of integrating your true personality are actually going to help you to reduce the inner conflicts and improve your relationship with yourself and others. It can also help dissolve the illusion of separateness between what you deem to be you and not you, which is necessary to move beyond the self that you think is you, but is not you, in terms of overlay distortions, whatever the fuck else is standing in the way of the true self in order to experience the self-transcendence that spiritual awakening will bring to the individual. And in terms of dream time archetypes, the shadow is something that's there. It has to be integrated. Again, this is the very first stage of the alchemical rites of initiation. And it's okay. We cannot be in fear of this. It has to be seen for what it is. And as an archetype, it does serve as a universal symbol that's seen in all cultures throughout history. And today we commonly see many of the archetypes in terms of the mythos and all of the books and the movies. There's many, many different archetypes. So in your dreams, any archetype that comes up are not just characters, but they are also objects, it's setting, it's storylines, and a lot of other fucking elements. And some examples of classic archetypes during dream time may actually include viable memories in terms of the codex activating in terms of who you really are. In the face of that, though, that's all the nightmares, that's all the night terrors, that's all the fucking bullshit. In whatever ways people want to talk about these sorts of things in terms of holographic inserts and implants and fucking seals and all of this other fucking shit that has nothing to do with who we truly are. Who we truly are is working to actualize itself, so it's pushing these things up and out into waking consciousness so that they can be fucking released. And again, it's all about observing this stuff and not allowing yourself to identify with it. And in turn, you become your own inner hero here in context to archetypes. And so you got to know that the shadow is actually an important archetype that represents the parts of yourself that you have not fully accepted. And often the shadow signifies something that you're obviously in conflict with. And see, that rejection in context turns into projection. Are you hearing what I'm saying? This, though, could represent a part of your personality or past memories or part of yourself that is suffering here in context, or even further, something related to society in broader terms. And in light of everything that's been happening this fucking year, much of what's been coming up in order to be released is what I'm getting at here. The shadow can also be a neutral or even positive part of yourself that's not fully developed. It's where all of our suppressed desires and the things that are really important to us are buried underneath the idea that you're not allowed, or that you're not worthy, or that you're not good enough in order to achieve these things, in order to be who you really are. And so Jung stated that contemplating archetypes and finding adaptive ways of relating to these images are there for you in order to foster self-integration. And you don't always need to understand what these images specifically mean, per se, but it's all about changing your relationship with them. That's the key. How you relate to whatever is coming up during your visions or dream time. And once you change the frequency of your relationship in context to the self, a lot of these nightmares and night terrors are not going to have any place during dream time or your visions. Again, going back to what I've stated, it is all about our state of fucking mind. Mind is something that we are observing, though, from the core. Who you truly are and how you relate to the self in turn. Now, interpreting your dreams while you're still dreaming, interpreting your dreams while you're still dreaming. You see that this is extremely challenging. If this can be achieved, you're going to add new depth to your dream time practice in context. And instead of waiting until you're awake in order to figure out what the dream means, adopting the view while you're still in your dream state, and whatever images you're encountering, again, are symbolic representations of parts of yourself. Remember that. That is key here. And see, this is going to let you interact with your dream states with a much higher degree of intimacy and true intelligence. So say if you have a dream about somebody trying to chase you down or whatever the fuck, you got to understand that this is something that you are projecting upon that in terms of things that you're doing to yourself. This is the proper way to interpret. And lucidity, applied in this way, readily mirrors all of these things with more clarity. Now, in terms of healing, in ancient times, people have integrated mental imagery into cultural practices for healing, which has included of dreams. Your dreams are a landscape. There could be a number of things that are revealed during our dream time. But you can use lucid dreaming in order to intentionally explore all of these things to ease your suffering and nurture the self-integration process, knowing the difference. During dream time, there's a lot that also contains wisdom about the body, including sickness, disease, ailments, miasms, because again, everything that individuals are dealing with in context actually have their etheric origin. The physical body is a direct manifestation of the etheric body, again, the makeup of the mental and emotional bodies. So providing ways to heal the mind-body connection through lucid dreaming and becoming aware of when you are lucid is going to be a major factor in knowing how to pierce and master the third veil. And during the dream time awakening process that we are all going through right now in 2020, all of this is going to be very viable in terms of everything that I'm getting at. Pay attention to your dream states. Pay attention to your visions. Okay? Now next, I'm going to be pulling this segment into the fourth veil. Take time right now in order to reflect on the things that were spoken about with the first three. This is Sethikus Boza, Black Earth Productions. I will be back yet again after this next break. Welcome back, everyone, again, to Labyrinth of the Nine Veilz. This is Sethikus Boza, Black Earth Productions, Blue Flame Healing Arts, and Occult Science. Those of you that have been listening that are interested in the Mystery School, I'm going to encourage you to check out the website at blackearthproductions.com. Click on the Services tab, as I am going to continue to encourage the full rites initiation session with those that are ready to lay the proper foundation in terms of the real pathwork trajectory that not only all of this entails in terms of the segment, but many other things that have been presented on Black Earth Productions. And to many people that I've spoken with over the years in context to all of this, it has been very powerful for them, those that have utilized the things that I've shown them, and again can attest for themselves with their own personal testimonies of how powerful all of this actually is. It doesn't come without challenge. It doesn't come without facing reality as it is, let alone yourself. But it does set on course for the individual a springboard in order to navigate the three spirals of creation. Now, of course, there is a lot more to this, but again, without the proper foundation, it's going to become extremely difficult for anybody out there to navigate any of the knowledge, any of the information, let alone what the fuck is happening in the reality field to the hour that we are in right now, which is really what I'm going to dive into next and explain some things in terms of where we are when it comes to human evolution or a continued de-evolution otherwise, if people don't take this to heart and with passion and allow that spark to ignite from deep within the core of who they are. I'm telling you guys, now is the time. Now is the opportunity. Now is when we really need to start pulling things together in terms of unity consciousness, not only when it comes to the self, but when it comes to others as well. Because all of this shit that's being amplified, especially within the first 4 veils, in turn, is what is being exposed in this specific segment. Not only to that, but to recognize the difference and to know that now is the fucking time. So in terms of the 4th veil, this is what I'm going to be getting into next. If anyone is interested in the Mystery School, send me a direct email at blackearthproductions@hotmail.com. Now, moving into this, in terms of the 4th veil, when it comes to the collective unconscious gridworks of mankind. This refers to structures of the unconscious mind field, which are shared among all of us as humans, and not just humans, but all species of life here on Earth. And according to Jung, the human collective unconscious is populated by instincts, as well as archetypes, which is everything I just got into, universal symbolism in terms of the great Mother Earth herself, the Sky Father, which is wisdom, elemental consciousness, when it comes to earth, air, water, fire, and spirit, and things in terms of the true universal tree of life. Now, Jung considered the collective unconscious to underpin and surround the unconscious mind field. Distinguishing it from the personal unconscious, he argued that the collective unconscious had profound influence on the lives of individuals who lived out of its symbols and clothed them in meaning through their experiences. The psychotherapeutic practice of analytical psychology revolves around examining the individual's relationship to the collective. So in contemporary terms, there's the autonomous psyche or the objective psyche, which are more commonly used today rather than the traditional term collective unconscious, but the collective unconscious gridworks in terms of the core wound of humanity have been back up for review in terms of the great year. So all of the unconscious issues in terms of the core wound of humanity have been back up for review. And critics of the collective unconscious concept have called it unscientific or otherwise very difficult to test, quote unquote, scientifically. And this is due to the mystical aspect of the collective. But again, people don't know things in terms of metaphysics. They don't know things in terms of spirit science. So these proponents suggest that it is born out of the findings of psychology, neuroscience, and anthropology. But here, I'm telling you guys, it runs much deeper here in light of everything that I'm going to be getting at. So here, the term collective unconscious distinguishes the personal unconscious, which is filled with more than I can even say, and the quote-unquote collective unconscious encompassing the soul of humanity at large. See, people talk about collective consciousness, and we all know what the collective consciousness grid works are in terms of what the fuck is going on in the reality field right now. It's clear as fucking crystal. But nobody talks about the collective unconscious trance that everybody's fucking been in, into all of these things in terms of fear being amplified on levels I've never fucking seen, and those that are aware of what the fuck I'm talking about have never seen as well. So the essential thing psychologically is that, again, going back to the third veil, in terms of our dream states and other exceptional states of mind, the most far-fetched mythological symbols can appear at any time, trying to get our fucking attention. And often, apparently, as the result of a particular influence in terms of tradition, the mythos, the blood codes that have been working to activate themselves, and excitations working on the individual. See, all of this is happening without any sign of them, okay? But the primordial images in terms of archetypes belong to the basic stock of the unconscious psyche and cannot be explained as simple personal acquisitions, okay? This is in terms of the 12 original race lines here on Earth that together make up the psychic stratum, the collective unconscious. Again, this is everything that we have been ripped away from. This is what's working to awaken. This is what's working to remind us of who the fuck we really are, okay? Not just in terms of what I'm getting at when it comes to the 12 original race lines, but take it even deeper in terms of the real pathwork trajectory in context to who you really are with all of that. So to the existence of the collective unconscious, this means that the individual consciousness is anything but a tabula rasa, which is a term for having a blank slate. We came in with a blank slate in terms of who we are at the core. And to that, imagine the canvas of reality. Who are you creating yourself to be? See, we were never taught that. We were never given the rights. Here in turn, given preconditioning and indoctrination and overlay. That's the muck there within the basement, so to speak. But there in that place is something far more rich and meaningful. And this is what we need to be reaching for, past, moving through this veil specifically in order to remember. All of the codex and key codes of consciousness, in light of what I'm getting at, are there. It does not matter what you're dealing with. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. It doesn't matter. What matters is knowing the difference and going through the process of activating these things from within the core. And who you are at the core is who you have always been. And I'm talking about the pure essence that is there, that cannot be taken, that cannot be stolen. It just needs to be remembered and ignited to the predetermining influences in light of everything that's fucking happened. It is by the highest degree influenced, again, from the unavoidable influences exerted upon it by the fucking environment. You see how this works? It's that hive mind shit. It's that herd mentality. And so here in turn, the collective unconscious compromises itself to the self and the psychic life of our ancestors to where we need to be going in context here. That trajectory is not lost. That trajectory is working to get our fucking attention in the face of everything that's going the fuck down. And things in context to the matrix of all psychic occurrences, it's been exerting a very specific influence that compromises the freedom of consciousness in the highest degree, since it is continuously striving to lead all consciousness process back to all of that inverted, distorted, overlay fucking bullshit. And see, Jung knew that there was proof of the existence of a collective unconscious. First of all, to its insight into its nature, and could be gleaned, again, from the third veil in terms of the imagination. But look at what the fuck has happened with the imagination. And in his clinical practice, Jung identified the mythological elements which seemed to recur in the minds of the people that he was working with. above and beyond the usual complexes, which could be explained in terms of their personal lives. And the most obvious patterns applied to the individual, quote, nobody knows better than the individual recognizing this, that the myths are often pursued far into adulthood and is only given up with the greatest resistance. We are at the point where we cannot give up. We cannot cave in. We have to keep going. We have to keep pressing the fuck forward. Okay? And see, Jung recited these reoccurring themes as evidence of the existence of psychic elements shared among all humans. This is psychic fucking warfare that's going on, everybody. Wake the fuck up. This is going beyond the individual's mind. And everything that is happening is a projection of this core wound in terms of fear and a lot of other fucking shit in terms of the collective unconscious. And so by knowing the difference when it comes to true spirituality of all cultures, as well as getting into the arts and sciences that I touch upon when initiating individuals into the mystery school, all of these things are absolutely 100% viable in terms of navigating reality. 100% foundation. So again, what is the collective unconscious? Taking it further, Jung proposed that the collective unconscious is a layer of our unconscious mind field we come into this world containing that connects each one to the history of all of the thoughts and behaviors of mankind. The idea of this came to Jung after a dream that he had, which he stated was in a house with the first floor well decorated and organized, which he determined had to do with his conscious personality. Then the ground floor, more medieval, which he concluded was everything to do with his personal unconscious layers. And then finally a basement with signs of a culture and with it ancient skulls in terms of the collective unconscious. This is to do with the ancestors, that which is within your blood and your bones. Now, in terms of the overlay, when it comes to what is there, in light of this dream that he had, I'll say, this is what is working to be prevented. The trajectory of the awakening of the ancestors, again, started back in 2017 for all races, all tribes. So again, a modern analogy could be to imagine the collective unconscious rather like an inherited database. There's a vast field of inner knowing going back to ancient times that we can all actually access. And in fact, we must. And that allows us to have the experiences that are there past all of the fucking layers within the fourth veil so that we can remember who we really are. Not just in terms of navigating reality, again, all of the arts and sciences, laying the foundation, everything, but that which is within your codex. It's not just the core wound and the distortions and all of this bullshit, but that which is there past it all. All right? So again, archetypes, the ancestors, are universal concepts that we instinctively know. There is a deep inner knowing here in context. Beyond all of this, in turn, of course, is our connection to the higher force, our core intelligence, working to reveal these things. But to all of this, it is what Jung described as identical psychic structures that are common to all races and tribes. Again, these archetypes mean that we can have the same thoughts and ideas that the ancients did. Even if individuals come from different races, different cultures, different blood codes, okay? This runs much deeper in context to the truth. And in terms of the divide and conquer, everybody out there thinks they're right in their own eyes, and they're not willing to consider the fact that a lot of the symbolism, a lot of the archetypes here in context are talking about similar fucking things. It's just to do with different ways of explaining same principles from another point of view. If you think that your point of view is the only fucking point of view in the reality, you're an individual that has their head firmly up their fucking ass. This is what a fucking solipsist is. We're all here to learn from one another. We're all here to glean from one another. There's no one person out there that has all of the answers to the questions here in light of everything. And if we don't position ourselves to be the eternal student, to be teachable, to be curious, and go, wow, what is this? I don't understand. And because I don't understand, I actually have a thirst to know. I want to know. And there's so many things to explore here in context to many of the different ways of approaching the universal laws of metaphysics and the eternal axioms. What will become unique unto the individual comes down to their personal codex. And it's not to negate or allow anybody else to negate you if you are coming into these things and relating to the symbolism, all of these different ways of approaching things in terms of how things actually work when it comes to the mythos. And again, to quote one of the most versed metaphysicians out there, as far as I'm concerned, Dr. Phil Valentine, from his book, The Wounded Womb. Now, to that in context, you can take it to the second veil in terms of the void. This is what he says, though, in light of everything. The mythos is not merely a fanciful dead letter fairy tale of the pretend achievement of the ancestors. It is an allegorically encoded schematic hiding the metaphysical formula of science. When acted out through ritual and ceremony, myth teaches, regulates, heals, and transforms within the collective consciousness of the people that birthed it. Now, what is the fourth veil all about? The collective unconscious. And this is what needs to become conscious again in terms of what has been buried there at this portion of the core essence of who we are, not only as individuals, but take it back to the 12 original race lines. And to enter into the mythical dimensions of existence through ritual is to enter into a time of primordial unity, a time when things were and still are in divine order. And in light of all of that, in terms of the ley lines of the earth and the portals and all of the gateways to be accessed, not only from within ourselves, but in specific places, all of this is very real. And in hindsight, in order to access these portals and gateways from within ourselves, we can't be distracted. We can't be pulled upon. We can't be taken into the miasma, going unto yourself and going through the transformation process necessary in order to reach that level of rhetoric, doing study and research in context to the real work here. So the difference here, in light of everything, is to again recognize the hour that we are in, recognize the importance. We got to fuel the flame, that eternal flame. It cannot be quenched. It cannot be blotted out. It can only be concealed in terms of the labyrinth, but where you find it. Again, this is metaphysics. This is eternal consciousness working to get our attention. Works in a way that is beyond our quote-unquote mental control. It is an inner knowing, a deep inner knowing. So whatever blueprint that one is working with as an individual, this can only become experienced when we consciously choose to act upon these things. And in terms of awakening and making connection to your true intelligence and that ignition happening from within the core, this is going to trigger the codex here in context. And there's a lot of different fucking ways that this can happen. But because of what happens to each one of us is essentially unique, we will use and manifest parts of the collective unconscious. And with this, we can directly access the collective unconscious, again, within the third veil. The third veil is a sound step, but of course, all of this is being fucked with in terms of the first two. And all of this stuff in terms of the core wounds of humanity. Again, this is what we are working through right now. And we have to catch it. We have to fucking catch it, everybody. And then interpret the wisdom that all of this actually reveals. And we might come from different places and viewpoints, but we are all part of the great Mother Earth. So things in terms to the collective unconscious. It is to make the darkness conscious. And there is no darkness but ignorance here in light of everything. So hopefully this dissertation has shed a lot more insight upon the trajectory of what it means to actually pierce the veils. The more is going to be coming in the future with Labyrinth of the Nine Veils. This was the first installment, and hopefully you will be able to take this and run with it. Again, if anyone is interested in the Mystery School, check out the website at blackearthproductions with a Z.com in context to services. And if so, send me an email at blackearthproductions@hotmail.com. Again, to the hour that we are in, I'm going to encourage everybody to stand their ground and allow wisdom to bring forth what it is that it's going to reveal to you. This is Sethikus Boza, Black Earth Productions. Be empowered, be encouraged.